way. And I mean, you mentioned the other main man, and Virgil van Dijk, as you said, leading with absolute authority. One of the things I loved in the article, though, is even from day one, for those that haven't read it, Slot was straight on to Virgil, the best centre-half in the world, wasn't he? Saying, you need to take more responsibility in our play, in the game, and other things. So Slot, in simple terms, has pushed Virgil even to another level, hasn't he?
Yeah, and I think from what we've heard Virgil say over the season, that he's enjoyed that. He's enjoyed the responsibility for starting the attacks. Obviously, last season it was Trent coming from right back into taking the ball off the centre backs. That's not how Slot's played. He's wanted Virgil to sort of punch balls into midfield, as well as the sort of pass that we've all got used to, where he plays it 70 yards to Salah across the pitch. And I think Virgil's sort of thrived on the challenge of showing he can do that. And also, I think it's been quite interesting as the season has gone on, how teams have tried to sort of limit his influence. So obviously his sort of role is to maybe play a line breaking pass through players to find Ryan Gravenberch. And now with I mean, the Everton game away from home springs to mind to me, because Everton basically put a box around Gravenberch, which on the one hand signifies how influential he's been this season,
right,
but also it recognises, this role that Slot had earmarked for Virgil van Dijk to start the attacks more. And that, I think, on that night at Goodison, I think Liverpool played probably more long balls than they played probably in any game this season. So that shows the sort of how the team always has to evolve, and that will be part of the challenge for Liverpool next season. So everybody will be studying, Man City and Arsenal and Newcastle and teams like that will be studying out how to stop Liverpool. And as I think we've seen certainly in the second half of the season, teams attempting to sort of prevent Virgil van Dijk passing in midfield. So, that just sort of shows the challenge that there is to always stay on top, and it's just new things for Arne Slot and his backroom team to have to sort of work on for next season, because they can't be the same Liverpool, I don't think. I think they'll want to sort of surprise a few people, and that'll be interesting to see. And on the basis of what we've seen this season, when a lot of the players, or some of the players certainly, weren't involved in the pre-season, so didn't have that month where they spent on the training pitch with the ideas really getting drilled into them. Virgil was on record as a few weeks ago saying that will be an important period, because it's a chance to learn, and a lot of them didn't have that last summer.
Yeah, you forget how short pre-season was, all the tournaments going on, so he'll have a full pre-season this time. So it will be fascinating to see what he almost comes up with. And I suppose with this question around Virgil, Paul, I promise it's the only sort of contract, transfer, anything ambiguity linked to that related question. But part of Virgil's presence, I mean, I suppose for the foundation of the team, him and Konaté have played 99% of the games together, haven't they, at centre-back? It's been so important for us. But naturally, with Ibu, there's that worry that there's a year left to go, and, what that might mean, on the suggestions there's not much progress. Liverpool will know, though, how important it is probably to get Ibu tied down, isn't it, in terms of basing everything for next season going forward?
Yeah, I think the fact that they sort of signalled that they wanted to speak to him sort of, I think it might have been October, November time, sort of shows the importance they've attached to him. I think they would probably hope that he would recognise that what Liverpool and Arne Slot have done for him this season, in terms of re-establishing himself as a key player for the club. Obviously, that was a bit different to how he ended last season. So yeah, I think as always with the sort of contracts, it's two sides to it, isn't it? And we saw that in the end, Van Dijk and Salah were keen to stay, and that became clear. I think Konaté said after the game, after the Tottenham game, it's a conversation I'll be having with the club. The player, it all becomes a bit of a dance in a game, doesn't it? The players don't want to say too much and give their hand away while their representatives are trying to speak to the club. But I wouldn't thought Liverpool would want that one to sort of drag on, really, because it might affect what they do this summer, perhaps. They've been linked with centre backs, but as you said, Van Dijk and Konate probably played 95% of the minutes this season, so that it's not like they're looking to replace one of those. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see how that contract negotiation works out. But I think there'd be a feeling at the club that we've done a lot for Konaté, and he still needs to get better, and their view will be this is the best place for you to learn, alongside one of the best defenders in the world. So
should work out. And you say even at his age, they're coming into that period where centre backs almost mature as their reading of the game gets better. Not that it needs to be a huge leap. I know we're talking about Konaté as someone who's played in all the major finals, a Premier League winner as well, but definitely that pathway of improvements there. And I mean, we both talked about it there, just the fitness element, how many games those two, but how many games so many players have been fit for. It almost feels unprecedented under Slot as compared to what it was previously. It is important as well, and I know you wrote about this in the article, the backroom staff, the strength and conditioning, Ruben Peters, that was a real part of the reason why Arne Slot was picked, wasn't it, over maybe other candidates, what he could bring with his backroom team and that fitness element as well.
Yeah, I think they looked at three elements in terms of the recruitment process. So one was points-based model whereby Feyenoord got a lot more points than they were expected to each season, given the sort of stature of the club, probably in comparison to Ajax and PSV. There was also a sort of a performance model that Liverpool developed themselves, which looked at how a player performed before, during, and after contact with that manager. So they were able to, which sort of give an indication of how good a coach Slot was. And one of the other factors was the sort of fitness, keeping a squad fit. He wanted Ruben Peters to come with him because he'd worked closely with him at Feyenoord. Liverpool wanted their existing sort of medical and performance team to not be disrupted too much, because they had a lot of faith in people like Conal Murter and other people. It's headed by John Power, the whole sort of department. And I think one of the things that the move to the head coach role rather than the manager role has done has been to empower a lot of people at Liverpool to feed into the overall sort of provide their expertise, which makes the overall end product better. And I think that there's been that's one area in which the medical department has had more say in maybe how training has done this season and things like that. But that only works if you've got a manager who's open-minded enough to accept that advice. And that is one of the other things that the sort of article tries to sort of flag up, is that Slot's quite, there's a humility and a sort of lack of ego to him, that he will take advice on board, and not everything's going to be sort of agreed, obviously, but the fact that he's willing to listen to experts around him, is one of the sort of, maybe that's brought the club together a little bit more as well, and right. that's definitely had a factor this season, because Liverpool have had injuries. I mean, people will get probably annoyed when Arsenal's injuries get flagged up, and everybody, as though Liverpool have never had any injuries this season. Obviously, Jota was out for 3 months, Alisson was out, Konaté was out, Trent was out. So it's not like they've avoided injury. They've not had injuries, but
true.
I think the sort of muscle injuries are probably down, and that a lot of that goes to the way that the training's conducted on smaller pitches with less intensity during the week, and then it builds up towards the matches. So there's definitely been a change in emphasis there.
Love it. And I mean, the final bit, I almost want to go back to a line that you said earlier, and it links to the article about Slot and Liverpool will want to almost surprise others and be a new team, have that variation, that evolution, as you called it before.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the next steps in the article. I mean, it's a great point. Arne Slot has said a number of times that they could be more ruthless. There's games where they could have been sort of 3-4-0 up at various times in various press conferences, and even post it and pre-match at times. So that feels like the next step. And even the question mark about the squad size, who's trusted, who's not. But are those probably the big two things you think will be the questions next season, or what we might be looking for? Like, will Liverpool look to make themselves more ruthless, if that's the best phrase, and have a bigger squad there?
Well, I think the fact that he's sort of flagged that up for a number of weeks sort of shows that's something that's obviously on his mind. He's the one who sort of volunteered the sort of, we don't make games easy for ourselves. Yeah. I think I'd have to double check this, but I think it might be, is it 10 games out of 52 that they've won by 2 goals or more.
Yeah,
I think it's 10 or 11. So, but obviously that's not a lot of games. So there's a lot of games where, I mean, we can all probably think of them off the top of our heads, sort of, even Leicester away and West Ham at home and Wolves at home. Games like that became a bit sort of tense, when really there were spells in those games where Liverpool's control and sort of dominance should have been rewarded sooner, really, with more goals. So I think the fact that he has repeatedly mentioned that gives you an indication to his thinking that there needs to probably be an improvement in that aspect. I don't think Liverpool will now depart from the model that has got them here. I think that there'll obviously be money to spend, but I don't think, I'd be surprised if FSG say, right, we're going to do things totally different now. Why would you do that? Yeah. You've won 2 titles in 5 years. You've won a Champions League, got to 3 Champions League finals in 7 years. So I think, as regards sort of transfers and stuff like that, I think a lot of it will be dependent on who goes. And I think there's a few players with decisions on what they want to do. Harvey Elliott being one. Does he? Don't think he started the Premier League game this season, has he? I don't think.
No,
and, yeah. So he's obviously got a decision on what he wants to do. We probably know Kelleher said that he wants first team football, and with the new goalkeeper coming in, Mamardashvili, that he's somebody who may move on. What's going to happen at left back, we're not quite sure in terms of who stays, who goes. So I think Liverpool have always sold very well under Michael Edwards, and if you go back to last summer under Richard Hughes as well, I think Sepp van den Bergs and Fabio Carvalho's, he got good money for them. So I think that it's going to be an important period for sales as well. I did think this, he effectively trusted 13, 14 players, didn't he, this season in the league, which for all the sort of improvements on the fitness side of things, or differences on the fitness side of things, I should say, there is the potential to be left a little bit short. But equally, we know that Liverpool don't just buy for the sake of it. They don't just buy players to make a squad of 18 players. So I think it's going to be interesting. But I think that as well as sort of new faces, I think given the type of coach he is and the type of coach that we've seen this season, I think there will be some advancements and improvements on that come straight off his thinking and his coach's thinking, and translated from the training pitch as well. I think that's his in-game sort of management and his in-game tweaks have been a big feature of Liverpool's season. I think
100%.
There's that stat, isn't there, that they've won the most points from losing positions in the Premier League, I think, this season. I think that's correct. It certainly was up, and if it's not correct now, it was recently, and that's obviously down to his ability to think on his feet and affect the game and from the sideline. And I think, again, probably going back to the first point that we talked about, wanting players to improve. I'm sure he's got ideas on how to get more out of certain players next season as well.
Yeah, it's coming. And I'll probably finish this one, if Paul will forgive me, just with the last line for the article, which I think is absolutely brilliant, which says, Liverpool's charge to title number 20 has been impressive, yet the pursuit of the next one is already underway. And ladies and gents, honestly, if you've not done it already, absolutely got to recommend having a read of this one, The Making of Champions. There is a million things to take away from it. And we've asked a million questions. We've got a ton of insight. So all it leaves me to say is, Paul, for giving up the time, for giving us that insight, it is massively appreciated.
No problem. Speak again in the when the window closes.
Yeah, absolutely. We're back into hibernation for that period. But there we go.
The second window, not that dodgy first one for the Club World Cup, the proper window in September.
Yeah, the actual proper one. Yeah, the real one. Yeah. So we'll see what happens there. But ladies and gents, that was another special Media Matters for Anfield Index.